right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. This program is sponsored by the Norfolk Public Library and the Norfolk Council on Aging. And we are so excited to virtually welcome David Peck. He is the founder and owner of Calyx Collective, and he is here today to explain what CBD is and the possible benefits and side effects of using it. And I should make a note that this informational session is not intended or implied to substitute any professional medical advice. All content discussed will be for general information purposes only. I'm going to try to keep everyone on mute, but there will be time for questions afterwards. And if you want to put your question in right away, I will be monitoring the chat box, so you can feel free to type it in, and we'll reference that back after David is done speaking. So without further ado, thank you, David.
Well, thank you so much for the virtual introduction, and thank you all for joining us today. Yes, we will be talking about CBD, and I thought before I got started, just as a way of introduction, my journey with CBD started back around 2015-16. I unfortunately contracted chronic Lyme disease, and I was on a pretty heavy regimen of painkillers, different types of medications. I had changed my diet. I had seen an integrative health specialist. And after about a year or so, 8 months of being misdiagnosed and really looking for any relief, through a friend of ours, I was introduced to both CBD and THC. And I started on a regimen to get as much CBD into my system as I could to help reduce inflammation and reduce the pain. And within about 4 to 6 weeks, I was starting to wean off of the pain medications I was on. About 2 months out, I really started to feel as though I had gotten over the hump. And I was just absolutely amazed at what the effect that these things had on me in my journey. My wife and I decided to really spend some time understanding this, researching this. We visited a number of CBD farms. We really started to understand the industry and the pros and cons. And we started Calyx Collective as a CBD company, health and wellness company, really, focusing on CBD education, and consulting. So today we're going to talk about marijuana versus CBD, which comes from a different plant. We'll discuss cannabidiol, and again, CBD is just short for cannabidiol and how it works. Some of the health benefits, different ways that you can purchase and use these products. We'll talk a little bit about CBD in seniors. Studies. Now, one of the reasons why the medical profession has not embraced CBD the way we would like them to is that we don't have the studies that they're used to seeing, the big multi-million-dollar studies. We do have studies from this country and others. I'll share with you some of the things that we've learned and some of the things that we've seen through small independent studies. We'll talk a little bit about drug interactions, side effects, dosing, and then, one of the big questions is there's a lot on the market. The internet's scary. How do you buy good product? How do you know what you're getting? Medical marijuana. Now, medical marijuana comes from the cannabis plant. It is controlled by the state. To purchase marijuana legally, one must go through a licensed dispensary. In Massachusetts, these facilities started as medical marijuana only, and then the laws were passed to include recreational. And again, to buy these products, you need to have a license. They need to have a license to be sold legally. The reason being that THC is the active component, which is the psychoactive component as well. And this is what really creates the high. CBD comes from the hemp plant. If you were to look at these two plants side by side, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They're almost identical. The hemp historically was grown as an industrial product. It was grown for its thick stalks. It was grown to create ropes and clothing and sails back in the day. It's been around for thousands of years. most recently, it has been grown so that it has very little THC content. So by law, for these things to be sold and for us to all use them, they have to have less than 0.3% THC. THC, again, is the psychoactive component in marijuana. At 0.3%, it doesn't affect you psychoactively. But it's important, and we'll get into this as part of the overall medicine. The good news is it doesn't need to be licensed. It can be purchased anywhere. And the bad news is it's not licensed. It can be purchased anywhere. And that creates some of the question around quality and knowing what you're getting in the marketplace. And again, these products contain less than 0.3% THC, so there's no psychoactive effect to these products. The interesting thing is that they both have very similar medicinal benefits. And because there are many components of the plants that are the same. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we go forward. So what is this stuff? What is CBD, cannabidiol? Again, it's the non-psychoactive component of the cannabis plant. It is one of over 100 cannabinoids. The one we all talk about and we refer to is CBD. But there are many others. There's CBN, CBG. All of these have subtle differences, and they're all found in these plants. And they all have tremendous medicinal value. When we talk about these cannabinoids, it's interesting. Endocannabinoids are cannabinoids that we create internally. So we create these. A mother passes some along to the baby in breast milk. So these are in our system, endocannabinoids. The phytocannabinoids are plant-based. And what's interesting is that they do mimic the endocannabinoids that we produce on our own. And this is how this becomes very interesting, and this is how these plants become very effective. And there are really three ways, and I think one of the takeaways today is that you can purchase CBD and you can buy a full spectrum product, you can buy a broad spectrum product, and you can buy an isolate. And the differences are that a full spectrum product takes every component of the plant. It takes all the cannabinoids. It takes a little bit of THC. There are flavonoids, there are terpenes, there are fatty acids, and together is what really makes this plant great in medicine. A broad spectrum product is processed a second time, and they'll take something out. Typically, they might take out the THC. And an isolate is just the CBD molecule by itself, isolated. And I think one of the better ways to really talk about this is if you were to equate it to vitamin C. If you would eat an orange, you get all the value of not only the vitamin C, but the fatty acids, the flavonoids, all the parts of that orange to create great medicine. That would be equivalent to a full spectrum CBD product. Broad spectrum would be, remember when I was a kid, my mom used to pull a can out of the refrigerator, open it up, throw it in a jug and pour water in and reconstitute it. So it was a reconstituted product. It wasn't the natural form. That might be looked at as broad spectrum. And the isolate would be the vitamin C pill. So they all have that vitamin C in them, but the most effective way to utilize it or use it and get value from it from a health perspective would be eating the orange. So how does it work? In early 70s, an Israeli doctor doing research on really how marijuana makes you high, THC, came across the endocannabinoid system. This is a system that all mammals have. It works through a number of receptors in the body. There are two types of receptors, not important, but CB1 and CB2, and they do affect different parts of the body. And what this endocannabinoid system is doing is it's keeping things in balance. So it's a homeostatic system. So if we get sick, it kicks our immune system in to help with the immune system. If we get depressed, it starts to try to bring us back. So it's constantly trying to keep these systems in balance. Immune, nervous system, appetite, mood, certainly our memory and our pain. And because of the way we eat, the lifestyle we have, especially today, our systems are all out of whack. and this system is working overtime. And CBD affects this system. It's really looked at almost like a lock and key, where the CBD comes into our system and it creates very positive effects on this particular system, which then again affects a lot of the things that we do every day. So in the studies we've seen, in the people we've talked to, and what we read, we have seen that there have been some very positive effects on the brain. CBD, similar to other psychoactive drugs, crosses the blood-brain barrier. And what that means is, without any psychoactive effect, so what that means is it's been shown to have many neuroprotective qualities. And again, we believe that the anti-inflammatory properties as well are impacting the brain in a positive way. CBD is very anti-inflammatory, whether it's taken internally or whether it's taken as a topical, a cream, or a salve. It has tremendous anti-inflammatory properties. And there we see a lot of pain reduction. It has been shown to reduce anxiety. It is shown to have some effects on depression. Certainly, people are using it to help sleep. And it has a very positive effect on immune function. Excuse me. So the entourage effect, and if you do any reading on CBD, you might see this, is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It's the concept that the whole plant, the value of all the cannabinoids, all the terpenes, all the fatty acids together in the plant are what make it most effective and will have the biggest impact on health. So I want to talk a little bit about seniors. We have had the opportunity to speak at a number of senior communities. We've had a lot of interest. And so I thought I'd spend a minute just to talk a little bit about a study that happened not too long ago with 1,000 seniors. And what they found was that over half of them had tried CBD and a CBD tincture, which would be something they would take internally under the tongue. 15% took capsules, some vaped or smoked it. And 61 did say that it helped reduce pain. Also, almost half, 45%, reported improved sleep. And this goes to this whole ability to reduce stress, calm systems down to help sleep. So they did report less anxiety, less stress, and much more positive mood. That could be because of better sleep. And they also said that they were satisfied with it and would recommend it. So I think it's important to note that, you know, where everybody reacts differently to these products, generally speaking, they've had some very positive results. So as I said earlier, we don't have the studies that the medical profession would like to see, but there have been a number of studies done both here and in Europe that have had some very positive results. One was actually federally funded back in 1998, which did show that it had good antioxidant properties, neuroprotective properties. This is both CBD and THC. And they started to realize that these neurodegenerative diseases could be helped, possibly. And I know that there are continued studies being done both on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's around these neuroprotective properties and what that does to these diseases. And again, we're not suggesting this is a cure. We're not suggesting that if you take these things, it's going to, but these are just, the studies that we've seen are suggesting some very positive results that we've seen. Interestingly, a couple years ago, the FDA did approve a CBD medication. It's called Epidiolex. It was approved for a couple of rare types of epilepsy. The study really started when a young girl named Charlotte, who lived in New York, had severe epilepsy. She was having 100 seizures a day. Her parents were at wit's end what to do. They actually moved out to Denver, Colorado, because they could get CBD there. They put her on a pretty strict regimen, and literally within days, her seizures went down from 100 to 3 or 4 a day. excuse me, they started to experiment with some other kids, and they started to see the same results. And they started to enhance the studies, and the FDA, really a number of years later, finally approved this drug. Now, if you remember what I talked about with full spectrum down to the isolate, they ended up with an isolate because the FDA can't approve a plant. They can approve a specific molecule or a drug, which they did, which ironically is not the best way to take CBD, but it's the way to get it approved. An annual regimen of this CBD or this Epidiolex is $30,000 a year, which I find amazing. But it did help and does help these kids. And I think that's the important part of it. Also, Salk University found that these components could affect or reduce the amount of amyloid beta, which is the plaque protein that people are fighting or dealing with toxically with Alzheimer's disease. And again, there are additional studies being done around that as well. And in Colorado, this study was done, I think, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, that there was relief to Parkinson's issues, including tremors and difficulty sleeping. And I will say that we have seen some interesting results with our customers around the tremoral issues of Parkinson's and other things. And also by calming systems down, it is definitely helping people with anxiety and with sleep. We get a lot of questions around drug interactions and side effects. And of course, we all want to be very careful with this. And yes, CBD can sometimes interact with certain prescribed medications. The reason for this is that this enzyme P450 in the liver, which metabolizes these medications, also metabolizes CBD. So taking CBD could have effect on metabolizing certain medications. And what we like to tell our customers is that if you're being told not to have grapefruit or grapefruit products, taking your medications, CBD might have the same effect as some of that. We have not seen, and I think the important thing about that on the bottom of this slide is that to the extent that there have been some drug interactions, typically what we see is very high doses of CBD being taken. Sometimes it's an isolate, it's not full spectrum, and the amount of CBD that we would take on a daily basis is far below the levels that would most likely impact any drug interactions. But we also always ask people to consult with their medical professionals or doctors. We have not seen many side effects with these products. Certainly dry mouth, low blood pressure, maybe some lightheadedness or drowsiness could occur. Really, the side effect to CBD is that it could make you tired. And for many people, that's what they're looking for. They're looking to help sleep, looking to help relax, calm things down. So again, we haven't seen much, and we always recommend to consult your doctor. The other question we get all the time, and I think this is one of the bigger challenges in the industry, is dosing. And we tell everybody who's starting out on CBD to start low and go slow. So if you're taking a tincture, and we'll talk about that in a minute, very small amounts and gradually move them up until you find the dose that seems to be working for you. Everybody's metabolism is different. Everybody's systems are different. So to say for you to take X amount of CBD, that doesn't make sense. It's an experimental, it's an interactive journey of finding the dose that works correctly. Everybody's body chemistry is different, and everybody's weight is different. And so these are the things that all affect what dose will work best. Certainly health conditions, other medications that we're taking, and really general sensitivity. Some people can take a half an aspirin and the headache goes away in a minute. Some people take 3 aspirin and the headache doesn't go away. So if people are very sensitive to certain medications, they'll probably CBD would probably work well for them. But again, it really has to do with these conditions, metabolism, and activity, frankly, to find out where the best doses are. As a general rule, very general rule, 1 to 6 milligrams of CBD for every 10 pounds of body weight is probably an average. And that's just to put some perspective on it. So an eyedropper full of CBD might have 30 or 40 milligrams of CBD. So we'll take maybe a quarter, or depending upon how much CBD is in the bottle, we can start to figure out what's the best way to start and see what works best. The good news is that you really can't overdose on it. You really can't take too much. But the point is to find the dose that works best for you. The other thing that's interesting is how it's taken. So it can be taken as a pill. It can be smoked or vaped, inhaled. It can be taken sublingually, which is dropper under the tongue. And all of these delivery systems are going to affect you differently. The fastest way into the system is to inhale it. And some people are taking vapes or inhalers for very acute issues. It gets into the bloodstream very quickly, goes to work very quickly. The more common way that people are using it that works very quickly is through the sublingual tincture under the tongue, let it sit, and then swallow. And the reason for this is that you're catching the blood vessels under the tongue, and it gets into the bloodstream that way before it gets digested. And it could go into effect within 20 minutes. The pills, the capsules, are very effective, but they do follow your digestion, your metabolism. So many of these might take an hour, 45 minutes or more to really start to work. So a lot of people might take a capsule to sleep because it's going to last, and they last longer, but they are being broken down in the liver, and so you don't get the same effect. Topically, this is really more for pain relief, anti-inflammatory types of things. So those topical methods really don't get into the bloodstream the same way. They don't have the same effect as it relates to stress and anxiety and those types of things. So I think another takeaway here today is if you are looking to buy CBD products, we believe it is very important that they are organically grown in the United States. The hemp plant historically, again, was used to clean soil. The hemp plant will pull everything out of the soil that's there. So we want to make sure that the plants were grown using organic practices. You will rarely see a bottle that will say organic on it, FDA approved organic, but many of our farms and many of the farms now are being certified as organic. And it's simply asking the question or understanding from the reading that they are using organic practices in terms of how they're growing. We also like the small artisanal farms. It's not mandatory, obviously, but what we find is that these plants and the processes that these farmers use are much more gentle on the plants than you might find in a large production facility selling internationally, as an example. The extraction process is important. A number of years ago, it was more important because people were doing it in a lot of crazy ways, but really, the extraction process means how do we get the CBD, how do we get this medicine out of the plant? And there are a couple of ways that it's done, one using CO2, another using ethanol. If anybody has any questions around this, we can talk about it. But the point is that these extraction processes do not add any chemistry, any other chemicals into the plant. And when the CBD is extracted, it's clean. I think that's the important thing. Fourth on the list is the carrier oil. So when you buy a bottle of CBD or a capsule, the CBD is in a carrier. The carrier, many times, is an organic coconut oil or MCT oil. We have some olive oil. You might see it in hemp oil. But these, again, we like to see that they're organic. And really the differences come down to flavor and taste. A lot of the guys like, a lot of the farms we use like the MCT oil because of how it helps make the CBD more bioavailable when you take it. They're all good. Again, organic is important. And full spectrum. If you're taking CBD for stress, for anxiety, you're taking it internally, we believe that full spectrum products are superior and will yield better results. We do have customers that might be concerned about being tested for marijuana or THC. So we do have products with no THC in them. But generally speaking, most people who are taking these products are taking full spectrum. The other thing that's important is the testing, that you can see an independent third-party test of the batch that you buy. And those tests typically will show you the amount of THC that doesn't go over. They'll show you if there's any organic other compounds or any metals or anything in the plants. So again, it's important to know that it's being tested by a third party. And if you can find products that hit these bullets, then you're buying the best products that are really out in the marketplace today. We like the small farm organically grown products. This is a small farm up in Vermont, and we're standing in last year's harvest. So, how do you use it? Again, these bottles, these tinctures are eyedroppers under the tongue. Let it sit for 45 seconds and swallow it. There are a number of different lotions and salves that are available depending upon where you're putting it, depending upon how you, really it comes down to how it's applied and what it smells like. But for many people, these salves are bringing tremendous relief to pain and to some of the arthritic issues and conditions that we see. We talked a little bit about the capsules as well as another method of ingesting CBD. The bath salts and bath bombs that are available, again, I mean, tremendous as it relates to full body aches and pains and just relaxation. It does come also in gummies and mints, and very effective for people that don't want to take this route or who might just prefer it in that method. Again, it's an edible, it's eating it, so it takes a little bit longer to go into effect. And we also can do it transdermally through a transdermal patch, which is interesting because it will get into the bloodstream and it will get in over a period of time. So somebody who might have pulled their back out and they know it's going to go away in a day or two, the patch might be something great to give them relief over a short period of time. And I think we also talked about inhalation as a method. Much more acute, don't see as much of that, but it's very effective. So I just want to show a couple of pictures of some of what these products look like. These are some of the tinctures that are available in the market. These are different topicals. So on the left is like a roll-on that might be good for the hands. The pocket in the middle is something that you would put on the knee or something. So it just really comes down to how they apply these. And then there are different strengths depending upon what people might be looking for. Capsules. Capsules come in typically 10, 15, 25 milligram capsules. The benefit of the capsule, again, is that it will last a little bit longer, but you can't dose as accurately as you can with a tincture where you can basically put as many drops in as you want to find the right dose. But for most people that are taking these, they're finding that over time, these things work pretty well.